Alright, welcome to Phyre Dojo. And so apparently the stay-at-home orders are until the end of April. And so as all of us who are stuck at home, except, well, I am working because I'm a nurse. Been doing a lot of thinking, right? So one of the things that is available to you if you want to do friction fire at home is Lowe's, and obviously I'm not sponsored by them or anything, or just Lowe's is open to the public now, so you can go there, you can get stuff. They're practicing the safe distancing thing. You'll see when you go there, all over the store it says remain 6 feet apart and all that stuff. But Lowe's sells cedar. They sell Western red cedar. And if you wanted to practice a bow drill, especially if you used to go to tracker school and you miss your cedar bow drill sets, here's how you could do this. So as an example, well, here's the thing. I'm planning on making some sets that I need to finish up on, and so I quickly went there and got myself a cedar board for some orders. Well, I want to give you an idea of what you can do at home to make your own set, right? And one of the things I want to do is show you what I would eyeball when I'm going to look for a cedar board, all right? So if you look at this board here, okay, up and down, right? This board is 8 feet long, okay? This is an 8-foot board, and even though when you go to find these boards in the cedar section, it says that this is 3/4 of an inch by 8 feet by 8 inches, right? So it is 8 feet. It's over 8 feet, right? Here's the thing when you go to buy lumber. Here's the thing when you go to buy lumber. It's never the measurements that it says it is. You should always assume, that it's less than the measurements that it says, okay? Now the only measurements that are always accurate, pretty much, is the length. And this board is a hair over 8 foot, so it's 8 foot. But when you measure across, what do you see there? That's not 8 inches, right? It's always less. It's always going to be less than what it says it is. So that's a hair over 7. And when it comes to the width or the depth, okay, it says that it's 3/4 of an inch, but it's not. That may be hard to read, but it's under 3/4 of an inch, and it's just over 5/8. Okay, so the reality of what you're dealing with when you buy a cedar board, okay, is that it's going to be less than what you think it is across, and less what you think it is height-wise. All right, so I'm looking at 8 foot by 7 inches by a hair over 5/8. All right. These are perfect. This is a perfect size for making a bow drill kit, if that's what you want. Okay. So here's what I look for. I look for the least amount of knots. Cedar has knots. Okay. This is where the branches come out of the wood. Okay. And whenever you're looking at a board, you want the least amount of knots. So let's call this positive space, right? You want to look at the negative space where there are no knots. And when you look for a board that has the most negative space, where it has the least amount of knots in it. Okay, like here. It's a big space. No knots, right? Alright, so you're gonna go there. Alright, so I chose this board. Now, I want to give you an idea of what in my mind I'm actually seeing when I look at a board like this, right? So I had this all drawn out already before we get started. Now I like working with hearth boards that are 2 feet long. Okay, so when I look for my board, I'm looking for negative space that is free of knots, that is 2 feet, at least 2 feet long, that I can get a board out of. See this? Okay, and I got one here. There's another one. No knots, at least 24 inches long. See that? And then I've got another one down here, 24 inches long, right? And no knots. So I've got 1, 2, 3 hearth boards out of this, between the knots. And then if I can get a strip like this where there's no knots, that's going to be a knot-free spindle. Same here. These long squares that I plotted here, these are going to be spindles. Same here. These are going to be spindles. All of this section here, these are going to be spindles. And then I have these small blocks of just leftover space in certain areas. These could be handholds if you want, or you can make more spindles out of them, right? The thing about this as a handhold or a pressure hand brace is that since it's only a hair over 5/8, it's going to be pretty thin. And I like a pressure hand brace or a handhold that's about 1 inch thick. So, but you just have to keep that in mind. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this up, this 8-foot board, and I'm going to show you what I get out of it. All right? And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to show you how I just kind of throw a few of these things together. All right, we'll be back. All right, so I cut up the 8-foot board, and here's the yield out of it. I got 3 knot-free 24-inch boards, hearth boards, that are more than 5/8 of an inch deep and just over 7 inches. These are over 4 inches across. These ones. All right. So we got 4 boards out of there. These squares I'm going to turn into spindles. These are again greater than 5/8, and by the time I get them down, they're going to be 5/8 cylinders, which you'll see. These 6 pieces, which were between these spindles and the boards that I had, there's 6 of them. These could be handholds, but I'm not done with them yet. These are cutoffs. These are pieces that I'm probably just going to throw in the firewood pile. But here, these are too thin to be Dojo spindles, but I could probably make them into hand drill spindles that are 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And we'll see what happens with those. There's a couple shavings, and the only wood that you don't see here is the sawdust that it took to cut these pieces. So, Fire Dojo is steam based, right? So it's all about scientific proof, whether you get a fire or not, right? So that the tribe lives. It is a technology, it is a primitive technology, and so therefore you have to build. So steam is also engineering. You have to build the technology. You have to create the devices, okay? We're going to create the spindles. We're going to create the board. We're going to create the pressure hand braces. It's an art form in that you have to be very creative with what you have. And one of the things, too, about doing it this way is that it's with the last part of that, with the measurements of the board. You saw how I laid out the measurements on that 8-foot board. That is the most moral and ethical way to get everything, every inch of wood out of that board. So just as you would hunt a deer and use the whole deer, use everything, the sinews, the horns, the eyeballs, everything. The way you would not waste any part of that deer, I did not waste any part of that board. Now, these cutoffs, which I really can't do anything with, are going to be in the firewood pile. I'm going to see if I can make hand drill spindles out of these. The shavings obviously are going to be fire starter, but every square inch I could get out of that board, I got, so I could use the whole animal, or in this case, the whole board. So, all right, I'm going to work on these for spindles and these for pressure hand braces, and we'll be right back. All right, so here's what I did. I took those long squared pieces, and out of that we got 21 spindles. 21 spindles. So that was the yield out of that 8-foot board. We got 6 pressure hand braces. I only worked on one. These are the blanks. So here's one finished one, ready to go. And there were 3 24-inch boards, right, that are over 4 inches wide. So one, I'm making a Dojo set for someone, so I'll put that aside. This is one of the blanks. This is one of the blanks you saw earlier, okay? This was another one. And what I did was I cut down the center lengthwise, so now I have 2-inch boards, right? Now, you're probably more familiar with a longer, thinner hearth board like this. So you would take your spindle, and you would, the way you probably know it is you put a sharp point on one end and a dull point on the other. The sharp point is for your pressure hand brace, right? The dull point is so you could mate together with the board, right? The hearth board. Here, the pressure hand brace and this spindle are already mated and greased here. Now, I've pre-drilled and pre-cut the notches in this one. So, just as an example, for a 24-inch hearth board that's 2 inches wide, you can get, if they're an inch apart, 23 sockets on one side. So here on this one 24-inch by 2 hearth board, you have 46 sockets, okay? And then you could do that on this one, and then you would do it on your other 2 that you would have, right? So the only thing you would need, since from that 8-foot cedar board that we got at the big box store, the only thing you would need to do is get yourself a bow, right? So I already have this little rattan bow that I have, and so I'm going to test this set and see if it works real quick. Now, I recommend you don't do this in your house. I recommend you do it outside, right? One of the problems with pre-drilled sockets and pre-cut notches is when you do it the traditional way, where the unilateral force of the bow goes forward and backward, you tend to what's called drift. You drift into the notch, and when you go back, it'll drift that way. So you get what's called you get an oval, and you don't want that. How you avoid that is you can hold your hearthboard on its side, so you're not pushing into the notch. So I'm just going to pick one of these. Now this has never been used, right? The spindle's never been used. Pressure hand brace hasn't been used. This hearthboard hasn't been used. So we're going to do our first initial test right here on this one. Just going to start nice and easy. So Jake, if you want to come a little closer. You can see the notch is filling nicely. I'm blowing the smoke away. And let's have a look. That looks pretty good, right? So if you're stuck at home, as is everybody in the United States and around the world right now, Lowe's is open and they sell cedar, Western red cedar, and you can get yourself one of these boards. Again, look for something that has the least amount of knots, okay, and throw yourself together a set. Or, as I've shown you, from one board, you're going to get a lot of material if you are very economical with it, right? And this will get you through a few pandemics, not just one. All of this, right? All right, so if you have any questions, as usual, Fire Dojo is here for you to support the global tribe of firekeepers out there, and keep going.